Welcome to ConsistentCrimp.com, where we say if you are not measuring, you are just guessing. This is the introduction video to our new Consistent Crimp. The Consistent Crimp is the only tool that allows the reloader to quantify crimp pressure and to return to that exact crimp pressure cartridge after cartridge, day after day, after a die adjustment, a die swap, and even if your case length varies. Up until now, determining the best crimp pressure has been a nagging question and a huge variable in the reloading process. Not anymore. By using the Consistent Crimp, the reloader is able to specifically choose, apply, and test specific crimp pressures until the best crimp pressure has been discovered for a particular load recipe and weapon. Once this optimal crimp pressure has been discovered, the reloader records this pressure as part of the particular load recipe, and he can return to this crimp pressure each time this load recipe is used, in the same way he returns to specific weight bullets and powder in the recipe.
The Consistent Crimp is a familiar but redesigned micro-click torque wrench. To understand the features and benefits of the Consistent Crimp, first take a look at a typical torque wrench found in most stores or workshops across the country. Now I know this won't show up in the video very well due to glare, but first notice that the adjustable foot-pound range is from 20 down here at the bottom to 100 foot-pounds at the top. And second, that the scale measures in minimum 5-pound increments. While these design features will vary from torque wrench to torque wrench, both of these design features make this torque wrench almost unusable for the reloader. First, the foot-pound range is not broad enough for the reloader, who will need from 5 foot-pounds to 75 foot-pounds measuring capability depending on the caliber. And second, notice that the minimum foot-pound increments are 5 pounds apart. These 5-pound increments are not fine enough for use by the reloader, who will want to have single foot-pound increments to really zero in on the optimal crimp pressure. Next, notice that the typical torque wrench has a ratcheting 90-degree tool head. While this tool head is great to measure the twisting torque applied to a nut or a bolt, it is nonetheless worthless for giving accurate readings when attached to a hand press and used as a handle. Now look at the Consistent Crimp. We have engineered this tool to span the foot-pound range from 5 foot-pounds at the bottom to 75 foot-pounds at the top, which will serve the needs of most any reloader with only one tool. Second, the Consistent Crimp can be adjusted in as little as 1 foot-pound increments, allowing the reloader to really fine-tune his load development to find the optimal crimp pressure. Finally, notice that the Consistent Crimp has an interchangeable tool head that allows the Consistent Crimp to give accurate crimp pressure readings when used as a handle mounted on your press, and to receive the quick release adapters, allowing the Consistent Crimp to be quickly and easily attached and detached from your press. This is handy when moving the Consistent Crimp from press to press, or simply removing the swing weight when not crimping. Using your Consistent Crimp. Once the Consistent Crimp is installed on the press and you have completed all of the reloading steps except for the crimping stage, attach the Consistent Crimp to your press. It's important to note here that for maximum crimp control, do not crimp the case to the bullet during the bullet seating process. Crimp the case to the bullet separately using the Consistent Crimp. Also note that in this video we are using the Lee factory crimp die and measuring the applied crimp pressure using the Consistent Crimp. If you have used the Lee factory crimp dies already, you will probably notice that the crimp collets expand and contract according to the crimp pressure applied. We have seen that this crimp pressure range from open to closed collets can vary by as much as 40 foot-pounds. You will discover that each foot-pound increment can vary both the accuracy, what we call group location on the face of the target, and precision, average group spread, of your downrange bullet performance. We have also noticed that any cartridge reload recipe has at least one crimp pressure sweet spot and sometimes several sweet spots, allowing the reloader to choose the crimp pressure according to the recoil forces acting on the bullet. The consistent crimp can be attached to many of the most popular single-stage presses. Please check our website for the correct adapter to fit your press. Also note it may be set up for right or left-handed use. Installation is quick and easy and is covered in a different video. Adjusting the consistent crimp. It is important to understand that in order for the consistent crimp to measure the foot-pounds applied to the crimp die must be adjusted to cause the crimp to take place before the press handle bottoms out in its swing cycle and hits its stroke stops. Here the press is hitting its stops and no crimp has taken place. Another way of saying this is I'll adjust the die downward until the crimp takes place roughly halfway through the press stroke, allowing the consistent crimp to give its release alert when the correct torque pressure has been reached. This setup both enables the reloader to dial in specific crimp pressures and accounts for case length variance. Using the consistent crimp. Start by identically reloading your chosen batch of 50 cartridges, being sure not to crimp during the bullet seating process. Set your consistent crimp to 5 foot-pounds and then attach the consistent crimp to your press. Place the first cartridge from your tray into the press, pull the consistent crimp until it releases, and do the same for all 5 cartridges in the first row of the tray. This is quick and easy and very accurate. At the end of the row, remove the consistent crimp, adjust the release for the next 5-pound increment being 10 foot-pounds, reinstall, and for the next row in the tray or 5 cartridges, crimp to 10 foot-pounds. Follow this procedure using 5-pound increments until when looking down from the top during the crimp process, you can see that the Leave factory crimp die colettes are fully closed. Using this process, you not only get a consistent crimp, but you account for case length variance. Testing your crimped cartridges. Typically, I take each row of 5 cartridges, put them in their individual bag, properly labeled, and then head to the range. Here's a particular run that I've done with 7.5 by 55 Swiss. It just so happens that it took 35 foot-pounds to close the colettes in the middle of the crimp process. So this particular run has 9 individual bags. This includes my frame of reference or 0 crimp run of 5 cartridges. Once your range testing has revealed the best 5 foot-pound increment crimp pressure, you may use this as part of your load recipe or further hone in on the crimp pressure through further testing in single foot-pound increments. For example, In a test run of 5 foot-pounds to 35 foot-pounds, you discover that 20 foot-pounds gives the best overall downrange performance. By running more crimp pressure testing in single foot-pound increments near the 20 foot-pounds, you may discover that 18 foot-pounds or perhaps 23 foot-pounds produces even better downrange performance than the 20 foot-pound increment discovered in the first production run. Finally, when you are satisfied, record the optimal crimp pressure in your recipe, and you may return to this crimp pressure as you do for specific powders and charge weights or specific bullets and bullet weights. The consistent crimp is easy to use and intuitive. It will help you discover the answer to the question, how much do I crimp my cartridges? The consistent crimp gives you the control you never had but always wanted. You are going to love the consistent crimp.